Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream. And today I want to talk about the 1888 Goodwin Champions set, the N162. And the reason I want to talk about that is because I've shown this set in my early videos. You've seen some of the cards in there. But I really wanted to show, usually you see the baseball players, and I actually showed the football player also earlier in the earlier video. So other than that, I want to show some of the other cards on that set, because this set is a multi-sport set, and really was one of the first. The Goodwin Champions set and the Allen and Ginter set were the first sets that were multi-sport. So it included all different sports at the time, and the Allen and Ginter came out first, and they were white, basically. Sorry, they were white in the background with the color image in the middle, and then the name. And you've seen those cards before. And Mr. Goodwin decided that he was going to do. Goodwin owned the Old Judge. He was the owner of the Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarettes at the time. And these were inserted in Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarette packs. So these were way before the Piedmont and the Sweet Caporal and all those other brands. This was really the #1 brand at the time. So he wanted to come up with something unique. And they came up with this. This was a new printing process called chromolithography. We know it now as chrome. The chrome cards are printed now with the same technology that was done back in 1888. The difference was that these were hand done. And this is Isaac Murphy. He's the first, the only black athlete in this set. And he was the best jockey at the time. He was the top athlete in the jockey, as far as jockeys. There's other jockeys in the set. But today they still have the Isaac Murphy Award that they give out every year for the winningest jockey in the, for the year, after they complete all the derbies and all the runs. So that's one of them. So as I show you some of the cards, I'll talk a little bit about the players, but basically I'm going to talk about the cards and the process. This one here is the pool player. He was a champion pool player. Again, these are the 1888. If you can imagine these cards being printed in 1888. There was nothing like this before. The 1887 Old Judges, that were the ones that came before these, were also printed by the Old Judge Company, by the Goodwin Company. They also printed those, but those were printed with a photo of the player. And those Old Judges are also very rare. They're from 1887. So this new process of printing, and this Dioro, it was a champion pool player from, he was a Cuban pool player. And all these cards have the same back, so I'm not going to show you the backs. It's the entire, well, I'll show you the list so you can see. So you have all the baseball players, which are 8 baseball players, and of course the main ones are King Kelly, Cap Anson, you have the Tim Keefe, you have Dan Brothers. Those are all Hall of Famers. And you have bicyclists, billiards, you have the broadswordsmen, you have the a bunch of other stuff. You have the chess players. Let's see if I can get a good focus on this here. See, you can see the football card there. Then you have the jockeys, and you have the tennis players, oarsmen, pedestrian, pugilists, which are the boxers, the runners, and the wrestlers, and some other odd ones like Buffalo Bill and all that. So this was printed in New York, and it was the Goodwin Company, but it really was done by the Old Judge Gypsy Queen cigarettes back in 1888. So the process of the printing of these was so different at the time. and it was just something that had to be done by hand. So what they did was they had limestone blocks that they would smooth out the limestone block. This is Taylor. Taylor's one of the tennis players, lawn tennis. And you see the colors on this. So every limestone block had to be carved out by hand, the image by hand. And then they had to create a different block for every color that was added on there. This took weeks just to create one card. This is one of the chess players. This is Zuckertort, and he is famous for a famous opening, which is called the Zuckertort opening in chess. He created that opening, and he was one of the chess champions. And so the printing process on this was that they would have different blocks, and then they would have to, once the image is done, they created the color. They put the color on the block, similar to, it's a process that they do today, which they would put a kind of like an oil and then the water so it wouldn't mix, and then they put the paper on there. This is Sexton. He's a billiard player. Now, billiards is different than the chess. You see, billiards was a sport where they had to, they weren't pockets. It's a different sport, but it's very similar to pool. And they played, they did compete together. A lot of times the billiards player would go play the pool. They played both, but it was kind of a little different sport. So when these things were printed, they had to, depending on how many colors, that's how many times they had to press it on to the, to make different plates, limestone plates. And I've shown that in previous videos, how they actually made the process. It was just incredible. These are actually works of art. They're handmade. And all these cards I'm showing you today, they are, if you look on the pop report, there's on the PSA pop reports, all of them are less than 100 total population that are graded. And some of them are a lot less. Some you'll see are less than 20 pop. So this is one of the bicyclists. And you can see the bicycle they used to ride in, and that's the big wheel bicycle. And I've got other bicyclists here that I think I'll show. Let me see which ones if I have time, I'll see how many I can show you here. There's 50 cards to this set. Like I said, it's similar to the, if you remember now, well, not new, but the Sport Kings sets that have different, athletes and things like that. There's a lot of sets like that. This is one of the first ones. So this is the Pat Fitzgerald, and this guy was a pedestrian. So they would walk for a long, long time. If you can imagine, all of these things, the artwork, everything was done by hand, carved out by hand on a piece of stone. And you can see the birds in the background in the sky. Just the artwork is great. And look at the tree. To me, this is the most beautiful set. And that's why I started collecting these about 20 years ago. Maybe even a little before that, because I had a bunch of them before that. Because I really wasn't sure about them, and then I decided I was going to go ahead and complete the set. I had about 20 that I'd gotten as a dealer way back years when I was in the 80s. So, here's another one of the jockeys, McLaughlin. And you can see just how beautiful these cards are. Imagine, this is printed in 1888. And look at the horse in the background. The symbol there, the eagle, just their uniform. I mean, I just fell in love with these cards when I saw them. And it just reminded me, because you don't hear too much about these cards, but about 2 days ago, there was a great interview that was done by Rob, the sports card therapist. And I would like you guys to go back and take a look at that video, a podcast video. It is also on podcast. And he talked to two of my friends that I really admire, Mike, baseball collector, and Adam, Splendid Sports. And he did an interview with those two and another Adam from Wise Guy Sports. And Adam from Wise Guys brought up the Goodwin Champions set. Again, this is 1888, and this is Jack Dempsey, the original Jack Dempsey. And he was the first middleweight champion of the world. And his nickname was Non Pariel, in French, meant no equal, because he was one of the greatest fighters ever. And in those days, John L. Sullivan was the champion of the heavyweight, and John Dempsey was the middleweight champion of the world, the first middleweight champion of the world. And this one's a 2 because of there's some chipping, as you can see. But these cards, the color was laid on one at a time. So they had to first put, you know, I guess whatever color they decided first, maybe the green and then the red and the brown and the black. So basically they put the colors. It's really not that many colors. It was 4 colors and different shades of colors. Because it's the yellow, magenta, the blue, and the black. Those 4 colors were the basic blocks that they had to build to make these cards. 4 different blocks. And then they had to do, depending on the different shades, they had to recolor the block a different shade or a lighter shade so that you can get different backgrounds and different things. So, I'm just showing you some of the cards that I have here, just pulling out. Most of the ones that are the best ones, I do have them in the safe deposit. But I will pulled out all the other ones I could find hanging around here. And this one's a double. I got that twice. And this one I got it twice also. So that's this one right here. So I'm not going to show that. And so let's look at this one here. This is the high jumper. And this one, I have one in better condition. But the reason I pulled this out, because this one I decided to keep because it goes back and it shows you that there were collectors back in 1888 that collected this set. Because remember I told you the back was like a checklist of the set? Check this out. This is the earliest checked checklist card that I've ever seen, ever. And this card was checked off back in 1888. Somebody collected that set, and you can see how they checked off the cards. See that? That they had and the ones that they did not have. So to me, that is the coolest checklist of, you know, I've shown my 1970 checklist where I personally had checked off all of those, but I just thought this was cool. So this is a one of one in my opinion. I have that. I have a better condition one, but that one's on. It is on the registry. So and here's one, the same one. I think I have that 3 times. Here it is again now. So this is the one I just showed you. But the reason I got this one here is because this is probably one of the most nicest and perfect condition 1888 card that you're going to see. If you see this card in person, it looks like it came out of the pack yesterday. The reason it's greater too is because it was in an album, stuck in an album. You see the glue, and it has stuff that came out of the glue there. So this card was in an album for over 100 years, 135 year old card, but you can see how new the cardboard looks there and how new it looks. And check out the front. So I wanted to show this because you can see the details here real carefully. Let's see if I can get a good look at it here. But you see the background there, how that it's got the high jump wire here. And it's got like a pit there, and they would run up and jump. But you can see that card is just in just awesome condition, like it came out of the pack back in 1888. That was inserted in a pack of cigarettes. So this is one of the high jumpers, W. Bird Page. And that goes with that one there. And I have another one very similar to that. That was also in the album. That was also graded a 2 because of the album sticking thing. But you know, again, this is just a beautiful example. And this is the Oarsman. And look at the colors on those cards. Look at that. You can even see his hair, the hair on his chest that was actually done. I mean, these are like paintings. These are things that are artwork. I mean, they're just so beautiful. This was off-centered. You know, it was cut by hand. It was done by hand. These were all done by hand. In 1888, there's no machine that were able to print anything like this. And you see the other Oarsman in the back. So, you know, I thought you guys get a kick out of looking at some of that. So the conversation on that podcast was super interesting because they were talking about all of the different years, and Rob took the conversation all the way back to the 1800s, which is very rare. You don't hear, or I personally don't see anybody talking about cards from the 1800s, except a few guys, you know, Nuffset cards and a few guys like that go that deep, and me. But really, you don't. And that conversation I thought was fascinating because, you know, a lot of the you know, they don't know. Rob doesn't know anything about these cards or anything like this. And you know, they were talking about the end cards and the different things on the cards, the T cards and the E cards and all of that stuff. And you know, even Mike wasn't very, very knowledgeable about the Goodwin Champions, even though he talked a lot about them. But I think he confused them with the Allen and Ginters, and I think they all kind of confused them. Except I think Adam Wiseguy knew about them a little bit more from that conversation. But I wanted to give people just a good look at what these cards are all about. These are the first tennis cards. This is one of the first tennis players. You can see this is Beekman. This is Beekman, lawn tennis. So one of the first tennis players. You can see they played literally on the lawn tennis. And funny, they all had the same uniform. I mean, they all played in that. I'll show you another tennis guy in a minute. Let me just kind of throw some on top of here. I don't want to cover too many up, but I'm going to have to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at some of these too. So, let me see if I can find the other tennis guy real quick. Well, there was 4 tennis guys. Here's another tennis one. This one had not the same uniform, but this is more of a portrait. So here's another tennis guy. This is Taylor. But you see it's a similar, you know, they played with like a jacket on and like a, I don't know, it was like a tie even. So this is long tennis and this is Taylor. But you can see how they would do, I mean, the ribbon, you know, their face. I mean, really their faces are really, really well done. If you look at the famous Cap Anson and the King Kelly cards, I mean, they really look like the actual players. You know, so this does look like Taylor. If you look at the pictures on Wikipedia and stuff, you'll see. And all of these are the same. The artwork was just awesome. Again, this was the first chromolitho cards, chrome cards. The process began here with this set. And then it went on to advance, eventually doing the plates all the way from stone, which were these, limestone, to currently they use aluminum. This is another player, Jem Smith. I mean, this is another boxer. They called him the pugilist, but this is Jem Smith. And he was another one of the champions. I think he was a European champion. And he was probably the least known of the boxers compared to Mr. Dempsey here. And the other one that I want to show you, and I'll show you a couple more, and then there's 50 cards in the set, so I don't know what I'm showing you here, maybe 15 of them, 20 of them, so there's a whole bunch more to show. But here's another one of the boxers, and this one is Mitchell. And Mitchell was a good boxer. Mitchell was actually the champion, the English champion, and he came from England to fight here. And he, I told the story on one of my earlier videos, but he was unable to defeat John L. Sullivan. He came to fight John L. Sullivan. John L. Sullivan kicked his butt, but he was this guy was a great fighter, English fighter, and one of the champions over there. So that's Mitchell. And the other one I want to show you, the last one here for today, is one of the famous cards here, and one of the more famous cards, and that is the Buffalo Bill card. And this one, he was the Wild West hunter. So they had also people that were shooters, sharpshooters. There's another one, which is Captain Bogadarts, and he was a sharpshooter. But Buffalo, this is a plain days card of Buffalo Bill. This is when he was, of course, alive and doing his shows and hunting buffalo. And you can see he was champion of the Wild West Hunters. That's his champion. That's why he was in the set. He was the champion of the Wild West Hunters. So there's Buffalo Bill. So anyway, guys, I wanted to go ahead and show you those cards. And please go ahead and look at that podcast with Rob, a sports card therapist. Check out the discussion he had about the Goodwin Champions, the 1888 N162s. And here's a good look at some of them in my collection. Thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day. This is Orlando from Collector's Dream.